Well, let's start the show now. The first segment is O-Scale Modeling, and our sponsor for this segment is O-Scale Central.
I'm David Vaughn of O-Scale Central. O-Scale 2-Rail, models built to 1:48 scale and running on 2-rail track, is the best-kept secret in model railroading. We're pleased to team with Jim Kello to introduce O-Scale 2-Rail to NewTrack's viewers. O-Scale 2-Rail is for modelers. At twice the scale and 8 times the mass of HO, O-Scale's heft and ease of modeling create an outstanding model railroading experience. O-Scale 2-Rail modeling is as varied as railroading itself. Modern era, transition or old time, standard gauge or narrow. A wide variety of models is available at affordable prices. There is a supportive community and lots of shows, clubs, and events. You can explore O-Scale 2-Rail by going to our website, oscalecentral.com. You will find information about the scale and how to get started, as well as a free, searchable, scale-wide product and service guide and listings of coming O-Scale events. You will also find information about how to join O-Scale Central. We promote O-Scale 2-Rail and support modelers in the scale. When your eyes are going bifocular, when you need fresh challenges, keep O-Scale 2-Rail in mind. Check us out, oscalecentral.com. Thanks.
Well, with that said, now I want to turn this over to our host for the O-Scale modeling segment, Dave Schultz. Dave is just one fantastic O-Scale modeler, and I really appreciate you doing this, David. Thank you.
All right, I think that worked. Well, thanks, Jim. I'm kind of humbled by all this, but anyway, we'll get our show started here with this segment. We're going to talk about 3D printing. I just came from the Chicago show a couple of weeks ago, and I went to a couple of the meetings. And one of the dire reports that were given at these meetings were a couple of brass importers who were basically saying that their business was over. They had imported items from Korea, and the prices had gone so sky high that the shipments they got were probably going to be the last of the import brass that they're thinking they're ever going to get, because the Koreans are not willing to play cheaply anymore. They want more money, and they felt the prices were getting up to the point where, you know, the passenger cars that the one importer was bringing in were going to be $1,200 to $1,500 a piece, and you just didn't feel that the market was there for that. And then another guy, you know, he does trucks, and his passenger car trucks are some of the best on the market. But I guess many pieces and lots of labor. And this last batch that he got, I think he said they're going to be running in the $150 to $175 a pair. And he same deal, felt that the market's just not going to bear that any longer. So, you know, that it was kind of dire, you know, but I'm looking at it in a different light. I think what we're going to see is a grand change of the way things are done. You won't be going to Korea to have this stuff done anymore. And I think 3D printing is going to open the door to that. So the first time I ever heard about 3D printing was on the Big Bang Theory. I had no clue what they were talking about, but they were showing characters that they had printed of themselves. And I thought it was some kind of hoax or something. But then I was at Best Buy, I think it was, down in the Mall of America, and they had a 3D printer there, and they were making a nut and a bolt. And when they were done, you could take the nut and screw it onto the machine screw. And I was absolutely astonished at this. But the thing was huge. You know, it was about a 1-inch nut and bolt that they had made. But I thought, you know, the beginning of this is just rather incredible. So, and at the time, you know, you're thinking, well, okay, this is probably the Model T stage of 3D printing. It should only get better from here. And I think right now we're in the Model A stage of it. So let me get some pictures from the show set up here, and we'll go through and I'll show you some of the items that they were able to produce at this show. All right, where are you at? All right. Yeah, bear with me here, gentlemen, while I get this set up. Apparently there's no way to do this beforehand. All right, I think we're ready to do this. All right, here was an item at the O-Scale meet. Dan Doughty, in fact, printed these little tiny wheelbarrows in O-Scale with the steel wheel. And I just thought these things are just incredible. They were so delicate, but it's amazing to me that a resin printer could print something this tiny and that delicate, and yet they held up pretty well. And only getting, I think about $3 a piece for them. So they're not even that expensive to do this stuff. And next, of course, the famous target signal. It was one that he had printed off, and you can put different colored LEDs in there. And it's as small as LEDs are coming these days, you could put all three colors in one target signal. But the cabinets on these, you can actually read, Union Switch and Signal and General Railway Signal on the cabinets themselves. They got the door latches. It's rather impressive what they're able to do. And then, of course, the little fuel tank, propane tanks, 150-gallon tank, and I think he was getting $6 for that. That's kind of a neat little detail that they're starting to produce. This was all Dan Doughty's stuff that he was promoting. And then snowplows, that was another one. And we'll come back to the snowplow idea here in a bit, because I'll tell you the next step that they're doing with this 3D printing. But stuff like this was always hard to get in O-Scale. Unless somebody was making them in brass, you could make them yourself, but that's real fiddly, trying to get the curves correct and the door openings a little bit. Well, here's 3D printed snowplows, and I trust that the person who did these could make up many different styles of plows to fit whatever locomotive you're going to do. Even that crazy Southern Pacific and that monster plow they had the front of their Fs. Here was All Nation, John Wubble's table. He had 3D printed new floors and fuel tanks for the F units. These used to be metal parts, but now he's 3D printing these, and he's using a filament printer to make these, but they tend to be very durable and pop right into the shell. It's kind of unique. And this was same part. The fuel tank's a separate piece that screws onto the frame. Pretty sweet deal there for upgrading. And then, of course, because it's plastic or nylon instead of metal, shorts become a thing of the past. It's kind of nice compared to that. And then here's one outfitted with the trucks, the motor, the whole bit. And yet I was pushing on it to see how sturdy that was, and amazingly resilient. And once you bolt it inside the frame, of course, the flexing is not even an issue at that point. But I thought this was very unique that he could print these out like this, and they were fairly reasonable also. Scale City was involved in it with their stuff. This was a wheel template for painting. This was for 36-inch wheels, and of course, the 3D printer, they could make them in many different sizes. I know they've had these kind of things in HO scale forever, but this one here, can't remember the price. I wish I could, because all of this was fairly reasonable to do this. But I bought myself one of these, and in all the stuff that I bought, I still haven't found it. I got to keep digging. He is also doing little trailers, and these little bullet nose trailers, and the wheels and the dollies come as separate parts. So if you have older trailers, the wood kits or the old Max Gray brass trailers, you can replace the wheels and the dollies with these 3D printed parts, and it'll upgrade your trailer. But I see the tag here off to the side. He's got 3D printed dumpsters also. I didn't get a picture of that for whatever reason, but anyway, he had some really nice stuff there at Scale City. And then we're back to John Wubble again. The 3D printing, people always said, okay, you're going to be able to make parts and stuff, but you'll never be able to produce cars. Well, like I say, the Model A stage, we're up to this now. We can actually build cabooses, and the sky's the limit. If you can draw it on a computer, the 3D printer will print it. And this stuff is amazingly stiff. It doesn't sag. I've got a caboose that's a couple years old now that I bought that still as straight as the day I bought it. I feared a little bit that they might have a problem with sagging over the years. But I think these guys put a little bit of effort into it, and they add stuff to stiffen the car bodies up so that sagging and warping isn't an issue. And here was another caboose that he had there available, just showing the many different varieties that he can actually print with these. Another one. This one's got brass underframe and brass trucks. So, you know, it opens up a whole world of different, you know, if you like the brass frames and trucks and stuff, you can easily add it to a 3D printed caboose to add some weight to it. Just kind of nice stuff, I thought. And then, of course, little engines. He's got this little critter that I thought was pretty fantastic. It was all 3D printed. He put, can't remember what drive he put in that, but that actually ran, which was kind of fun to see. And then, of course, he had the wind splitters, which I thought were pretty fantastic. You know, this kind of stuff is just great. You know, his roof came in two parts because his machine's not big enough to print a complete car body. But I know that Dillon Lambert now is printing entire passenger cars, 3D printing passenger cars. And from the people that I've talked to, they thought they turned out great, and they seemed to be stiff enough to span that 90 feet between, you know, the trucks. It's just rather incredible. Another car with the drive in it. And then a friend of ours, Shaden Anthony, he's a young man who is just fantastic at CAD drawings. This is his latest project. He wanted to build one of these SD50s. I used to run these when I worked on the Canadian National. We didn't like them so much. The control stand, desktop control stand, so you're banging your knees on them all day, but they are rather a interesting looking unit. So he drew it up on his computer, and this was some of his first drawings. And then he started printing. And as you can see in this, the detail is incredible. That's why I say, I think you give 3D printing 5 more years, and I think it's just going to be astonishing what they're going to be able to pull off with this stuff. But here's the back end of his car body. Now he's designing it in many different pieces, but it'll easily almost snap together. I'm not sure if he's going to use mechanical fasteners or if he's going to use glue or what his plan is, but I know he's got a plan to get this done. But what is fantastic is even the screens are see-through on some of this stuff. It's just incredible. And there's another view of that car body that he's building. This is a locomotive Dillon Lambert has built, and a lot of you guys remember him. He used to run the show here, but I think he got a little busy. But this is his latest 3D print. It's a Lima switcher, and he decided to go with that as one of his first ones because, I mean, who builds Lima switchers in O-scale? They merged with Baldwin somewhere in the early 50s. So this was about the only locomotive they really built independently of themselves. And I don't think a lot of railroads bought them. I'd heard rumors of the New York Central and the B&O maybe had some, but then they became Baldwin units. But anyway, you know, they're building locomotives. He's even 3D printing the trucks. He'll buy the Stanton drives to put in the trucks. And he colored it on the computer to kind of show what it was going to look like when it was all said and done. He and I, mostly him, I've been working on a Baldwin locomotive, a DRS 44-1500, and its cousin, the 66-1500. He's 3D printing that one for me. I've always wanted one. The Northern Pacific had one of the 6-axle and 2 of the 4-axle. Well, trying to find those in brass are just awful. I think Overland maybe made 15 of them. So whenever they do come up for sale, they're commanding huge prices for them. So I talked to him when I saw him building this Lima. I said, you know, would you do a Baldwin? And he said, well, if you can supply me with photographs, I'll do it. So I'm supposed to be he's sent the drawings off to the printer. He's going to send the first print to me. And when I get that, I'll have to show everybody close detail of what he's developed on this. But I think this is fantastic. Trucks the same way. Sarah Grisenbach. I know a few of you know her. She is, I don't know why this picture turned out as lousy as it did, but she designed this switcher. That's an Atlas switcher, and she designed the interior for this locomotive. I sent her some photos. She acquired photos from other people showing what the interior of the SW1 looked like and some of the early switchers. And I wish I had better pictures of this because She's got the headlight controls on that. She's got the brake stand has got all the unions and elbows, and it's just absolutely incredible. And the brake stand, she's got the wood floor there, and the seat on the other side for the fireman, the heater. You can see the little grate that went over the heater, and the electrical cabinet in the middle. Just something, and it slips right into an Atlas switcher, or even Glenn Guerrera's new SW1 that he produced. I guess it'll fit right in there. And here was another view of that little switcher. But she's also this was an outfit. I think they call themselves 3D Central, and they're going to be printing her designs. She finally teamed up with somebody to do this stuff. So she had I don't know if she did the forklift, but I know the locomotive she had done, and she also 3D printed a tank car. This is entirely 3D printed. The trucks might be manufactured, but the tank car, the frame, all the underbody detail is all 3D printed. She is an absolute master at doing this stuff. It's just amazing to me what they're able to pull off. So anyway, that is my program on 3D printing. Now, the one picture I didn't have in there, Jay Criswell, he'll take some of these 3D printed parts, and he's doing a lot of experimenting with it. But he uses a wax-based resin and will print the part with this wax-based resin, and then has a guy who will put the 3D printed part into a porcelain mix, let it set up, and then pour brass in on top of it, and it burns away the resin part and breaks up the plaster, and out comes a beautiful brass part. And so Jay is thinking that they're going to be able to do this stuff fairly reasonable, where the price of trucks for even a locomotive will be down around $100 again for all brass pieces. And there's some people who are saying they could even do that with locomotives. If you can 3D print the locomotive, they could 3D print it in wax and then put it in porcelain and pour the brass in there to make the locomotive. So I think this is where O scale is going to be changing, and I'm not sure about the other scales as far as brass is concerned, brass imports, whether the price is going to hit them the same way it has O scale. But I think this is the future of it. I think 3D printing is going to be the way it's going to go, and that's not. I think you're going to see a lot of the manufacturing happening back in the United States again. So anyway, that's my my program on 3D printing. I hope you enjoyed it. Next month, I think we'll tackle a little bit of scratch building. I've been busy in my shop putting passenger cars together and a few other odds and ends. So maybe we'll show some of that stuff on once again, modeling on a budget. Anyway, thank you much, everyone, and we'll catch you next month.